What's going on, Star Wars fans? Recently, Kevin Smith has had some really interesting things to say, and anytime Kevin Smith has stuff to say, it's always interesting to look into, just with how big of a Star Wars fan that he is. He recently visited the set of Episode 9, and I think what he said is really going to interest you guys, so we wanted to show you that clip real quick and then talk about it. So here it is.
To be like, remember what you said? And he was like, come on out. So I got to hang out and be there on set, and there was this scuttlebutt about a set there at Pinewood, a big set that they were like, you have to see this. When you see it, it'll melt your mind. And I was like, what was it? And they were like, ask JJ. And so I asked JJ, I was like, they keep telling me I should see the set. And he goes, don't. I said, why? And he goes, the last shot of the movie. So I was like, well, now I really want to see it. And he goes, you don't want this spoiled. You want to be in a theater when this happens, trust me. And then other people on the crew were like, bro, I wish I hadn't seen it. I'm glad I did. He's going, but it will melt your mind. For that reason alone, man, and as inquisitive as I am and curious as I am, I desperately wanted to go look. But like when you talk to the magician's like, trust me on this one. You know, sometimes as human beings, we want to know how to pull a rabbit out of the hat. But JJ is such a magical magician that I'm just like, you know what? Do it. Trick me. I'll wait and get tricked. Even though I could have seen what it was, I was like, I'll sit back. I like your plan. He's never let me down so far. So it's there. There are people in the world that know what the last shot is, even if the movie's not fully cut together at this point. I'm not one of them.
I think that's beautiful that you didn't look.
I wanted to so bad. It was because of him. He's such a nice dude. He's such a sweet guy. He said it with such sincerity. It wasn't like, bro, don't do this. He was just like, you don't want to do this. You want to see this in a movie theater. Like, and he said it as a film fan. And at that point, I was like, I hear you. And I heard it as a film fan. Aren't you glad you asked that question?
Yes.
So, pretty good stuff from a really passionate Star Wars fan in Kevin Smith. Obviously, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be able to be on the set of a Star Wars movie, especially the conclusion to the Skywalker saga. But, I mean, what do you take from what he said?
I mean, so, I think, like you said, it's such an amazing opportunity that I'm, honestly more into the fact that he was on any part of Episode 9, all of what he said, we need to talk about, but, oh my gosh, just being on Episode 9.
Dream come true.
Dream come true right there, just to see the cast, and it would have been great. I mean, obviously, there's some cast members that would not be great. It'd be great to see now, but, okay, melting my mind. I think the 2 points, I keep saying it, is melting your mind and this set, and how those two are correlated. So immediately what comes to my mind is the fact that means we've never seen it.
Right.
Right, so we have these Vanity Fair shots that we all saw. I mean, we all think of that Kylo Ren and Rey shot on supposedly maybe the Death Star, right? So that means that's not the final shot. Is it the final fight? Maybe, but at least not the final shot.
That's not where the movie ends. That is interesting, especially since all these people who worked on the movie were telling Kevin Smith, go look at the set. It wasn't like, hey... Now, he did say that I believe he said the scene was being filmed around that time, but they weren't telling him, hey, you need to go watch the scene necessarily, although they're probably correlated. They were saying even just looking at the set, right?
Right,
even just looking at what they have set up will melt your mind.
Right, so that leads me to believe that there's so much more about just the set than the story.
Right.
Which...
whether it's an item or that's on the set or a physical location.
All right, so let's talk locations. What do you think?
It would take a lot to melt my mind with just a set. And the first thing that came to my mind was like, oh, the Death Star set maybe. But to me, that wouldn't necessarily melt your mind since we've already seen the Death Star in the trailer. So that was my first thought.
What about the throne room in the Death Star? The disassembled, broken throne room of Emperor Palpatine.
Like where Luke and
Vader show off.
Yeah. See, but it's so hard to wrap my mind around the thought that something would just melt someone's mind who's as big as a Star Wars fan as Kevin Smith.
Right, well, I guess...
what could you see? I don't know, seeing the throne room, that would be cool. But I can't honestly tell you I would look at it and just be like, oh my gosh. Unless one thing that they mean is that they literally created the Death Star on a set with zero CGI.
Right.
And it just would melt your mind to actually see that in person maybe.
That's fair.
But JJ tells him, you don't want to see this. You want to wait to see it in theater. And if the Death Star was literally built outside, I'm pretty sure he would say, bro, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see a real-life Death Star. So I don't know. Nothing makes sense.
So first thought comes to my mind is something we want to talk about later. We're going to also talk about things we need to see, locations besides this final location. But is Tatooine. I mean, technically, Episode 6, the first conclusion of a trilogy, didn't end on Tatooine at all. But when the series, what we all thought concluded in Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, that shot on Tatooine, I think, might have been the most emotional thing I've ever felt. Yeah. With just like, you knew Star Wars was at an end when you watched that. Apparently not, but you knew that was at an end, and it was reminiscent of what was to come in Episode 4. It was so well done, actually.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that would melt my mind because it's not new and creative, but I think that would mean a lot.
Right.
And I would want to see that because I do remember that those chills that you get, and also I think even now watching Revenge of the Sith, just those memories and like it just still gives me chills watching the end scenes of Episode 6 and Episode 3.
I agree, and to get something like a sunset on Tatooine as the final location and scene of the movie would be very fitting.
Right.
Possibly even demanded by the gods. Like it might be necessary.
Yeah. But then again, Episode 3, it was shot in a green screen room.
Right.
But Episode 4, Tatooine was all shot in Africa. So, I mean, I highly doubt it's a set then, from that standpoint. So it can't be Tatooine.
I almost feel like it really isn't necessarily a specific location that Kevin Smith's talking about.
Okay.
I feel like it's something that was there on the set. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this. It's so hard to know. All I know is I really hope it will melt my mind, whatever it is, right? I hope it's an experience. But on the topic of, Tatooine being in there, what are some locations that you feel like need to be in there?
First of all, I just want to say Tatooine has to be in the film.
Yeah.
I will literally...
You gonna riot?
I will riot. We will... Screw the Storm Area 51 thing. There will be a post, and I will make it myself. We will storm Lucasfilm if Tatooine is not in Episode 9.
I agree. It needs to be there.
So hopefully I don't have to make that post. But then again, I do think Endor needs to be in Episode 9. I do think that's the Death Star, and I do think the Death Star location is going to be Endor.
Yeah, not Yavin.
I don't think it's going to be Yavin just because JJ has been so good at looking at Legends history, and Legends generally has talked about the Force Nexus that was around Endor after the Death Star blew up because of Palpatine's death. So right. I do think he's going to kind of run with that vein and focusing more on Legends, which I think should make a lot of the Legends reader and the Extended Universe readers happy.
Okay. For me, one of them, and I know I've talked about this on the page before, but I think Naboo is really big. I've said time and time again that I think it would be meaningful not only to see Naboo, but to see Padme's grave.
Yes.
Kylo to see that in some way. I just think that'd be really cool.
No, I agree. I think Naboo would be great. I also think, just kind of running back with memories, is it was a sad moment in the film when Padme died, but it was also a very emotional moment. Her funeral procession with holding the piece of jewelry that Anakin had made for her. So I think it could be very meaningful to actually see her final resting place, and it'd be neat to see if Vader ever made it there, if Anakin got to be laid next to Padme and maybe Leia's there.
That'd be cool.
Besides that, Mustafar would be pretty interesting to see because there has been speculation about...
That's a good point.
Hayden Christensen in Episode 9.
Right.
And that would be really cool. And even if he's not, I do think some sort of James Earl Jones' voice being in Vader's castle and Kylo Ren seeking something out.
I truly feel like everything points to Mustafar being in it.
I agree.
We know Snoke's ring came from the catacombs of Vader's castle on Mustafar.
Right. Which
That's
would be
huge.
A random fact, I think, without that.
Yeah.
But
Kylo is obsessed with Vader. Of course he would go to the castle, right?
Exactly.
And then the other thing I've thought about, or has been talked about a lot, is the Vader Immortal game. Apparently has a lot of connections and ties with Vader's castle right now as well.
Right.
If you're playing that game.
Also, the comics with Vader. Those have been published within the last year, but they focused a lot about the importance and significance of Vader's castle.
Right, and the tuning fork that it was.
Right, beyond just So I don't know, and then I also think with that point you brought up with Kylo being obsessed with Vader is he's always kind of looked at Vader as like his figure of what to do in like any situation. And I think with Snoke being gone, Kylo's going to need to turn to Vader even more because I don't think he's going to look to Snoke, and I really don't think he knows what he wants.
Yeah.
You saw his meltdowns even after he kills Snoke. So I think that we're going to need to see him need some sort of guidance, and Vader's the best place for him to look so far.
True, but also keep in mind Palpatine. If Palpatine's back, he could be a very influential force,
figure, right? Okay.
Right, as a leader to Kylo.
They could have maybe a correlation where he looks for where Vader found guidance, and you see it turn to Palpatine.
Definitely. Interesting.
Another one, I think we've talked about this a lot, is just an iconic thing from the prequels was watching Coruscant.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I mean, it wasn't the New Republic center as it was in the Empire and Republic days, but I just think that was such a cool city, or, well, planet that was a city.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see what became of it after, because we know Emperor had headquarters and stuff there on Coruscant too, even in the Galactic ages, but I'd like to see what's become of it. It's a very likely place for relics and stuff that Kylo could be looking for. Rey as well. Yeah.
Just be interesting to see. I mean, one of the special editions that I really liked that Lucas actually chose to do was he shot those quick scenes with people celebrating throughout the galaxy at the end of episode 6. And there was a quick brief scene, I think, of Coruscant. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of interesting. So it would be nice to see, from that standpoint, like just something quick like that where you see maybe an update on Coruscant.
Okay. Well, guys, lots of good, interesting stuff to talk about coming from that. I'm curious to hear what you guys think, what sets will be in the movie, what planets, and really curious to hear what you guys think Kevin Smith could be talking about that would melt our minds, melt all of our Star Wars fan minds. I think that's going to take a lot. Hope JJ's up to that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe because
destiny.